if this mushroom's been around for so long, why hasn't it been an integral part of mental health care?
Well, I think it's pretty easy to research that, the Rockefellers came onto the scene and took over the pharmaceutical industry and made it all about petroleum-based products, which is pretty wild. And, then that led into the whole Medicare system, and which is really, people, this may trigger people, but just look it up, do your own research, look how the Rockefellers all started, right? It's out there. This information is there, and they really created the whole Medicare system, healthcare system, quote unquote, which is really like the death care system. And because once you get ill, you get sick from all these other things that are going on, and then you go to your doctor, and he's like, okay, well, I'll just put you on this medication, and which is based in petroleum, which is pretty wild. There's no really getting off of it, unless it's a tough road to get off that. It's one medication after another after that. And I think, we're starting to see this being unraveled and revealed. And, God bless, Bobby Kennedy Jr., because he's standing up to these people, and it's a wonderful thing to see. And this goes back to like the truth coming to light, and, it can be intimidating. It could be scary to go up against these gigantic corporations, but it's just part of it. It's part of the hero's journey, it's like going to face off with these dragons and just knowing that, yeah. So back to answer the question, this mushroom has been around for thousands and thousands of years. And I don't know if it was actually there when the dinosaurs were there, but I'll take your word for that.
I mean, that was what my research showed. Now, these are guesstimates.
Sure.
Right. But we know it's definitely millions.
Yes.
Okay. It's just millions.
Yes.
If something's been around for millions of years.
Yeah.
Why has it not been leveraged for modernity's healthcare?
Right. Well, it was involved with all these ancient spiritual wisdom texts, like there's books that go back to like the early teachings of Jesus, and saying that he was using these mushrooms. It's called The Sacred Mushrooms and the Cross, very controversial book by John Marco Allegro. And this guy studied the Dead Sea Scrolls more than probably anybody. And then he's saying there's definitely, whether, I know it's a very controversial book, I'm not saying I believe everything that's in the book, but it's also very dense. It could just be over my understanding. But what it is saying for sure, there's definitely a tie to Jesus and this mushroom, which is pretty cool in itself. This guy studied the Dead Sea Scrolls way more than I ever did. And then it's in the Rig Veda, which is the Hindu text, these hundreds of hymns that the ancient Hindu spiritual masters would drink the soma, this ancient elixir. And the magic ingredient in this ancient elixir, a lot of people think it was the Amanita muscaria. They say it wasn't a plant and it wasn't a root, but it was from nature. Well, what does that really leave? It could very well be a mushroom. And there's a lot of signs that point to it was the Amanita muscaria. And so that's the Hindu ancient text. Then there's the Vikings in the Norse mythology that they were using this before battle. Why? Well, because it slowed down time. Time is a construct of the conditioned mind. Again, so these guys are using it for their own prerogative before battle, but it quieted down the mind and it made them fearless. This is something that we know that this mushroom does with the GABA receptor. And this mushroom has been studied a lot. There's many studies that I could show that it reduces fear, it reduces anxiety almost to null. So why hasn't it been used in, modern healthcare or psychiatry and stuff like that? Well, there's been an agenda, I believe, obviously, that's been put out. These benzoapodrines, these very toxic anti-anxiety medication, is an $18 billion a year industry in itself. How many people do you know, Josh, that are on anti-anxiety medication that feel truly liberated, that come across as the very free and liberated? They're not. And that's not right, in my opinion, So it's like, it's here to just give other alternatives, other options. And the very, very cool thing about this mushroom, this product in specific, is it's anti-addictive. It really helps with addiction. So it's like after the 2-month protocol, you don't even need the product anymore. You're seeing things from a different lens. You're seeing things from a soul level. You know, that's what psychedelic means. For most people, it's a trigger word. But what psychedelic actually means is soul revealing. So you start to reveal things to yourself on a soul level. I think that's very powerful. And that's what legal psychedelic microdosing can be so valuable, is just accessing different states of consciousness, which is another word of saying different perspectives, to make optimal choices.
Some of the hit pieces I've read have been around, oh, it's toxic. This mushroom's toxic. And actually, in some forms it is.
Sure.
Right? So,
raw form.
Yeah, in raw form it is. But you guys do something amazing, which is so cool. This is why science and spirituality both get a seat at the table, man.
Yes.
Because what you've done with the QuickZone and the ability to have it be a transport medium, like so basically you put it under your tongue, boom, it's in your bloodstream right away. It's amazing. And there's this decarboxylation process that you've talked about. Share with us that, because anybody that's saying it's toxic probably is just not in the knowing that you can make it really healthy and deliver it to the body super easy.
Yes. And that was when I first started researching this mushroom. And it's very interesting to see that all the information or misinformation that's out there about that, you could tell that there's a lot of fear put out there about the mushroom in itself. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I've seen this kind of hit pieces type stuff before, and it was like all around fear around this mushroom. And I was like, why is there so much fear around it if, you know, it was talked about with Jesus and the Hindu and the Soma and all this kind of stuff. I was like, something isn't adding up here. And like most things in nature, in its raw form, that doesn't mean that it's the way that it's supposed to be ingested, you know, but through science, through experimentation, you know, these shamans in Siberia found that if you heat up the mushroom in a tea, and there's the decarboxylation method there, which basically means heating it up in a tea, well, the toxic ingredient, and the toxic ingredient, what that really means is it just may cause some nausea. You know, yes, there could be signs of toxicity. If you really ate a lot of the mushrooms, you could have a seizure or something. That's pretty serious. But in micro doses of this, or in using the tea, but especially in micro doses, I'd say the less that you use this mushroom, the better. Like it knows the mushroom itself is innately intelligent. So it knows why you're using it. Are you trying to escape from something? Are you trying to avoid something? So it's like once you build the relationship with the mushroom, it actually starts showing you things about yourself. This is the soul revealing aspect of it. But yeah, so in the decarboxylation method, which is essentially heating it up, it changes the toxic ingredient, which is ibotenic acid. It combines it with the other active ingredient, which in there is muscarine, and it forms a new active ingredient, which is called muscimol. And muscimol is not toxic at all. And in micro doses, it's extremely beneficial for many, many things. And there was a Russian doctor named Baba Masha that did a study with 8,000 people using the Amanita muscaria on many different types of doses. And they found that the microdoses actually had the best effect. And it was reading this book that really, really, you know, the data speaks for itself. She didn't have any financial agenda. She wasn't selling products. She was just like, she healed herself using the Amanita. And she's like, well, let's let the data speak for herself. So she did a study with 8,000 people, Josh. And out of these 8,000 people, the cure rates on some of the most, you know, toughest things to get through in life, like alcohol addiction, cocaine addiction, PTSD, severe anxiety, depression, but yeah, skin conditions and all this kind of stuff, they were cured. Like we're talking like 75 to 90% cure rates. And then what does that mean? Well, they just didn't have these symptoms anymore. They were gone, you know? So, and that this was all just to show that this Amanita had so many benefits. And that's when I really knew. I was like, okay, wow, the data is there. And it's like, okay, I just need to expose people to the data. So that's another part of it is I could get into, but we're going to study this mushroom and bring the data out there because some people want to see that, the science, you know, it's more than just podcasting and talking about it.
Well, how perfect is that? That the very people that are like logical minded and need the data, need the science are the very ones gripping the steering wheel so tight, white knuckling the steering wheel that they themselves in their discovery process of why they should take it and what's the science, it's their soul wanting them to do it. So it's actually just a soul reckoning for the hard charging A-type people that are like, show me the data, show me the science, show me the hard stuff. that's them convincing themselves in a logical way from the mind down that really the body up is asking them for something different.
If you love that video, you'll love the one on the screen right now. Click the one on the screen and enjoy.